Kettlebell Dranger. Rating season is upon us. The battle for the title of North American Champion returns to the Twin Cities for the 2024 WKSF North American Championship. Our presenting sponsor is Living Fit. They have provided a $500 cash purse to the best performers at the competition, as well as there being raffle prizes for every registered competitor. Go sign up today for only $100 and come claim your glory and your spoils. We will be back at the Athlete Lab in Little Canada, Minnesota on Saturday, September 28th, and accepting video submissions for online competitors. Go to TwinCitiesKettlebellClub.com to register today. Come, answer the call of battle. Join us and fight for your clan, fight for yourself, claim your spoils and your glory. Sign up now, and may your name forever ring out in the Hall of Champions. Sign up today at TwinCitiesKettlebellClub.com. Welcome to the Platform Podcast, where we talk to coaches, athletes, experts, and real people to learn about their approaches to training, nutrition, mindset, and much more. I'm your host, Jordan Kundi Wright, founder and head coach of the Twin Cities Kettlebell Club, and our mission is to become our best selves through sport. This episode is brought to you by Living Fit. They are a presenting sponsor of the 2024 WKSF Open North American Championship. They are providing the $500 cash purse for the top performers at that competition. They exist to make fitness as simple as possible, and they provide high quality equipment at affordable prices, fantastic workout programs designed by professionals. They also do continuing education and certification for fitness professionals who want to become the best instructors that they can be, like, say, getting a kettlebell certification from myself or my guest on this episode, fellow master instructor for Living Fit, Mike Silverman. And on this episode, we dive into GPP, what it is, how it applies, and how you can make it part of your programming as a kettlebell sport athlete. Now, we dove in on this topic because I got a great listener question about how you can use GPP and how you should incorporate it, how you should think about it as a kettlebell sport athlete. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. And of course, if you do, give us a like, a subscribe, a 5-star review, follow us on YouTube, share it with friends. Any and all of these things really help us expand our reach and grow the Platform Podcast, which I very much appreciate. So without further ado, let's step onto the platform. All right, welcome into this week's episode of the Platform Podcast. I am very excited to welcome back my good friend, Mr. Mike Silverman. He is a high-level strength and conditioning coach, a kettlebell Living Fit master instructor like myself, level 4 instructor, and he's occasionally a kettlebell lifter himself. Mike, welcome back, brother.
What's going on, dude? How are you tonight?
I am doing well. It is my daughter's 10th birthday today, and we got a very special little surprise where the Minnesota Twins, I got to give them a shout out because they sent us a message. We signed up for a free kids club like a couple of years ago, signed up both of our kids for them, and we just got a message a couple of days ago like, would your kids like to come onto the field before the game and say, let's play ball? And we got to go like into the dugout and out onto the grass, and it was really cool. And it happened to be on Kira's 10th birthday, which we thought that was the reason that she was selected. And then when we got there and we met with the lady, she was like holding her sign and she's like, it's your birthday today too. That was not at all why she got selected. It was just that her and Rowan like fit the age range that they typically look for, and like they'd been club members for a couple of years, and it was just a cool coincidence, serendipity was the word I was looking for. Serendipitous that it just happened to be Kira's birthday, so we got to spend the day. We got 4 free tickets, got to take him down onto the field, got to do the whole thing. Oma and Opa came down and also bought tickets to the game on their own. And they're sitting in a different section, but they came down as well, so it was really cool. My daughter had a blast, and my son was super nervous about it, but he toughed it out and did it, and got to be near all the players and everything. And I got pictures of him, like he's walking by the Twins dugout, just like waving at the players, because we weren't supposed to talk
So
to him, which he followed the rule, like you can't talk to him, but he was just like doing a casual wave as he walked by.
that's awesome.
Few of the players waved back to him and everything, so it was super cool. I was very excited about it, so it was a lot of fun. It's been a good start to the day, and now I get to spend a little bit of time talking kettlebell with my man Mike. And as always, I'm gonna ask you, cheers. We'll say l'chaim. And what's in the glass, brother?
So today I decided I was just going to be as fancy could get. This is a Rangpur Negroni. So you're looking at Rangpur Gin, Amaro, Campari, and sweet vermouth with some bitters because pinky's out,
Pinky's
baby.
out, yeah. Shaken or stirred on that one?
Stirred. What do you think I am, a heathen?
I don't ask questions you don't
Don't
have
answer
answers
that.
to. Yeah,
Just let it go,
don't.
man. Just let
Yeah,
it
we're
go.
just gonna let that one slide. So, hey, this past weekend was the Cali Open,
Yeah.
out at Orange Kettlebell Club, which I'm not sure if you saw that. There was some good sets. Cyborg Dennis cranked out 85 long cycle reps on the double 32s, and then because Ola has to make sure that she's allowed to stay in the house, she did 102 on long cycle on the double 12s. There was David Beal, I think, did 78 on long cycle with the double 28s.
Yeah.
I know our guy Patch had a
Yeah.
really good biathlon set. There was all sorts of
Yeah.
good stuff going on.
Saw Patch out there going light for him. He was running 20s. He's normally a 24 kilo lifter when he was on Team USA in Poland this summer.
Yeah, I think he
So
did. He did one. I think he did 139 on jerk, and I know he was over 200 on snatch. So he put up a nice biathlon set.
yeah,
There was a bunch of great sets. You're a kettlebell nerd when you're like getting the notifications on Instagram. It's like, oh, it's a live stream of a kettlebell event, and I'm like sitting there on my phone like watching people and
yeah, and
commenting.
and, and 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 John Wild puts on a really nice presentation out there. I mean, he's a pro. He's been in this business for a hot minute now, and it's like it's like they just put together a professional organization on. It's a well built event when they do stuff out there. Just from a competitive philosophy, Buckley's just got his head's in the right spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a great facility. I don't know if you've had a chance to be out there, but like everything's set up where like the timers are in a permanently fixed in a position, the platforms are in their same position, it stays the same, and they can run 6 platforms in parallel. The only thing they don't have is like a ton of spectator seating, but let's be honest, like you don't get a ton of spectators at
Wait,
most.
you're saying our niche sport is not packing stadiums? Blasphemy.
Not yet. Not yet. Let's see what we can get Hop Thor doing on. I want to get Hop Thor and Eddie Hall doing a long cycle long cycle
Hey man,
competition.
I'm waiting for Kevin Hart and Keenan to come out there like they've been doing for the Olympics and get out there with Snoop. So
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
need we need Snoop Dogg doing the announcing, like, oh shit, she's snatching that 24 kilo kettlebell. That fucker heavy. Damn.
look at that shizzle.
Uh, that was a
Yeah, man.
Snoop impression, but I'll work on that. I'll
It's
I'll work
it's it's
I'll
it's
work
god
something.
awful. We're gonna let that go, and you might want to cut that out.
Yeah, yeah, I don't edit this. It's fine. We'll just let it roll. But you've got a comp coming up. You have the Tough Temple Kettlebell Open. So we've got like multiple AKU qualifiers. We're like officially
Absolutely.
after the team came back from Poland. Now we like immediately kick off now it's time to qualify for the 2025 USA Kettlebell Sport Team, and we've got qualifiers starting this past Saturday. You've got yours coming up. There's a bunch
Yeah.
of them coming.
So I mean, technically, the qualifiers started as soon as the roster for the 24 team was final back in like March, April timeframe, right? So I think it was, what was it, something like 15th of April. Everything after that, if it's AKLU sanctioned, it's a WKSF qualifier. So we've been seeing lifters putting up some pretty fantastic numbers. So 25's team is going to be awesome. I mean, 24's team was great. 25's team is going to be even better. We just literally had our AKLU board meeting about a half an hour ago. So everybody's getting real excited for that. Big push this year to get some professional lifters, more professional lifters in there to run up the American team standings. So definitely hoping that we can get some dudes throwing 32s and some of the ladies throwing 2024s. Um, uh,
You can count on me for a solid 6, maybe 7 reps on the 32s right now, and then
if I stay on one hand, I'll be okay. It's when it goes to the left that it all falls apart. Uh, but yeah, I mean, we can't all pull a Kim and go out there and like throw 30 double 32s overhead in open comp as a woman. Scare the living hell out of people. That was pretty awesome. So yeah, Tough Temple Kettlebell Open is September 8th this year. It's going to be in Bethesda, same place as always at my gym. Um, should be a really nice comp. We've got Living Fit sponsoring it again this year, as well as Kettle Guard. So Jess DiBiase, a champion in her own right, will be there sponsoring with that. And then AKLU partners, Virus, are going to be back in the house as always. With official USA team swag available on their website, and it's really nice gear. Actually, it's like I'm kind of waiting for the sizes that I need to come back in because the stuff I wanted sold out. I was kind of bummed, but yeah, it's a fully sanctioned regional tier event. Should be real nice. That's again 8th of September. So
Bethesda is in the DC area. For those of you that don't know, that's why it's called the District Kettlebell Club, is because they're in the Washington DC District of Columbia. So
yeah,
for those
maybe
of you that don't
we'll
know
have some of our
where
local
Bethesda
champions.
is,
Yeah, expect to see some of our local champions. So Noelle Albert, Sarah Irely. So Marty will come in again because Marty's usually there. Sarah Moore. So we've got some really good quality, long established lifters here in the area. So we're pretty excited for that. Then jumping into October, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're having a comp if my memory serves.
yeah, we actually moved out of October, so we're September 28th this year. So the last Saturday of September here in the Twin Cities is the WKSF Open North American Championship, which we're hosting at the Athlete Lab again here in Little Canada, Minnesota. And we did that intentionally. I intentionally moved it up because last year Nikolai had the All American Kettlebell Open in Atlantic City like the weekend after, right after mine or right before mine. I can't remember. So we basically had competitions on back-to-back weeks, and I was like, let's try and not do that this time. So I'm a couple weeks ahead of him. I'm on September 28th, and he's back. This year they're at the Tropicana, but they're still
Yep.
at the Mr. America, the All American Kettlebell Open at the Mr. America Fitness Festival, I think is the full title. And that's
Yep.
here in Atlantic City, October 13th and 14th, if memory serves. I'll put links into the episode notes, but that's another one. So
Yep.
we got a couple of East Coast venues going on. We got mine in the Midwest. We've had some on the West Coast. We're working hard to make sure that there are options for everybody to be able to compete in person somewhere that's hopefully not too bad for you to travel to. And then, like, I know mine is taking video submissions. Yours is as well, right? You guys are also
Yep.
accepting video submissions.
Yep, 1 through 4 September, we'll take video submissions. Everything is on the AKLU title and the AKLU tables. Again, sanctioned lifting is consistent lifting, right? So the whole idea that you should be able to see, if you see the AKLU seal on something, you should expect that the rules, the equipment, the tables are all going to be very lifter centric, very consistent every time. And so all three of those events are going to be under the AKLU sanction. Yours, the All American Kettlebell Open, and the Tough Temple Open, and then we were
I think
talking.
I think just so we're clear, I think All American might be in person only. I'm not sure. We can check with Nikolai on that. I
I
think
think
his is in person
yeah.
only.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think he's in person only on that. I was at it last year, and I think you and I did some live streaming from it last year as well. Um, the improved venue, Tropicana is going to be better. It was split venues between the convention center and Tropicana last year, and that led to some traveling issues, commuting issues between the Sheraton and the Tropicana. And Nikolai heard that feedback from the lifter. So did Mr. America. And so it's all consolidated in Tropicana, which is actually a pretty decent facility. Um, and so it was a nice event last year. Nikolai knows what he's doing. It's fully sanctioned as a regional tier event.
That's
If
Dana. That's Dana from Ray's Kettlebells also, right? Helps organize that
Yeah,
as well.
Dana from Raised Bells is the event producer. Nikolai is the event director, and it's going to be multi-seal sanctioned. So it's going to be IKMF, IKO, and AKLU. So the marathoners will be under IKMF. The WKSF, the world sanction is going to be under AKLU, and then the recreational sanction will be under IKO. And so all three of those are going to be all three of those sets of tables will be there for lifters, and there will be events from all three sets. It should be a real nice event.
Nice.
And then obviously Pro Kettlebell is going to have plenty of that goody, plenty of that good sexiness there because it's Nikolai.
Yeah, you're gonna have those sexy smooth bells with their teardrops and the cutaways. And I gotta say that the new foundry, the stuff from the new foundry looks to be, well, they got multiple new foundries. It looks to be super high quality. I haven't gotten to put my hands on it yet, but from all my athletes that have gotten one of the newish bells, they've all said that they're fantastic, and people are pretty excited about the quality that they're.
Yeah, I mean the quality's always been outstanding. We've got a full rack of them up at Tub Temple, and they're fast bells, man. Those things turn over, and when you get them in rack for jerks, it's like, oh, they just hug your shoulders. It's so nice.
They are super nice. Like that is one my first feeling on them was like, oh, they're really going to be great for snatch. I underestimated how much I was going to like them for jerk because they take so much pressure off of your palm
Oh, for sure.
because they sit so nice on your forearm. They actually take pressure off of your hand, which minute I don't know about I don't know about you, but when I get to like minute 7, minute 8 in a jerk set, aside from my chest, lungs, and everything else screaming, but one of the things that always bothers me is my hands starting to go numb, right? Like especially if you're working like 24s or heavier, right? Like just having the weight sitting on that,
That bell just sitting
yeah,
there.
sitting on that nerve, like your
Yep.
hand just starts to go numb, and you'll be like, this feels like somebody else's hand because I can't feel it anymore. But I don't run into that as much with the
So
pros.
my answer for that, right? Being a long cycler, my answer is going to be like jerks are great. That's half the lift, all
Yeah,
right?
just
But get it
spread
off
out
the
the
nerve
misery.
every other rep, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but then my heart wants to explode. So, it's just a
Over.
different type of
So,
suffering. But
hearts are overrated, man.
yeah, who needs one, right? Who needs one? It just
I've been
profusely.
living for years with completely heartless, so we're good.
It's just black and small. It's there. It's just tiny off in
It's
a
just
corner.
cold and dark.
That's why you're a great kettlebell coach, right? I loved your glove snatch meme, by the way. Glove snatches because because you want to save your athletes' grips, but also because you're an asshole.
I'm not saying I went to Harbor Freight this afternoon and bought a 6-pack of gloves, but they are in the garage.
Why not? Yeah, I got a bulk pack as well that I got off of Amazon, and I just anytime one of my athletes is like, "What gloves are we talking about?" I'm like, "I'll just send. Just what's your address? I'll just send you a pair because it cost me like 75 cents a piece. So no,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. It's like $6 for a pack of 6 pairs or whatever. It's like I will 100% absolutely. Oh, you're bitching about it? My gift to you.
Yeah, your hands are a little tore up. Oh well, guess what? You just throw the glove on, and you'll be able to keep working on your cardio without tearing up your hands anymore. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
in hand tear season too, at least in the Midwest. I don't know how like much of the devil's armpit weather you're getting in Bethesda, but here in the Twin Cities right now, like last week, it was like tropical level humidity. We got rain for 2.5 days straight, where it was like 3 inches per day for 2.5 days straight, and then it was like 93 degrees. So it was just like sauna the entire time.
So it's nice. Like Tough Temple's fully air conditioned, which is pretty good. But our front wall is glass, and so when it's 110 degrees outside, there's only so much the HVAC can keep up with. And it got to the point where at one point the HVAC was just saying "peace out," and it was so. And even with like 14-foot ceilings, there was condensation raining in the gym at one point,
Wow.
but from all the humans doing all the wonderful work. But then one of the air conditioning units basically flipped us the bird, and the condensate line started like pissing gallons of water out of the HVAC unit in the middle of the gym, and we're like, oh god.
Dang.
So we're sitting there throwing 5-gallon chalk buckets and stuff up underneath, throwing empty chalk buckets underneath of it. It's like 2 gallons every couple hours.
Wow. Yeah,
You,
it's a
it's the next morning, but I mean that evening was a rough
that
workout.
is yeah, that is always a bit of a build your mental toughness type of session when you step into your gym and it's like, oh my God, feel like I'm literally in someone's armpit right now. This is awful. But
Yeah. So I used to teach one of the gyms that I used to work at was it's mostly boot camp and CrossFit kind of stuff. And it was not air conditioned. And so they would just roll up the bay doors and hey man, there we go. A couple of big barn fans. And that got rough. That got pretty bad.
yeah,
So where I'm at now is pretty nice. I'm not going to argue with it too much, but
a fully temp controlled environment is always preferable. That's one of the things I love about working with the athlete lab for putting on our comp is I don't have to worry about the like, oh, is the gym going to be 100 degrees because it's temp controlled and indoors. So that's always nice. Although when you do it in end of September or in October in the Twin Cities, it's like, is it going to be super hot or might it snow? I don't know. You never know. Bring a coat, bring shorts, bring a sweater, because it's fall in Minnesota, which it could be late summer or winter. They're really, that's pretty much your options. But
yeah, so we're angling towards South Pacific here in DC lately, right? So the summer in DC is largely someplace between uh, you know, yeah, like 95 and 110 and 100% humidity and 105 and 100% humidity. So DC in August is usually like all the locals try to get the hell out of Dodge. It's nothing but tourists. Um, so it's like y'all can enjoy this. We'll see you guys after school starts back up.
yeah, you are surrounded by water there, so I can imagine it's kind of always humid there with the ocean.
Well, DC was also built on a drained swamp.
Oh,
The city is actually built on a drained swamp between the rivers and the swamp. It's yeah, it's quite the delight.
there's a whole tie that we could make to politics, but we won't delve into talking about politics in
No
today's.
politics in the gym, man. You know the
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah, I have very few rules, but one is we don't bring our politics to the platform. that is that
No
is not
politics in the gym.
that is not the place for it. But I did bring you on for a reason, and it's because
Not
I got
just because of my amazing good looks and charm.
I mean, yes, that in addition to your expertise as a well-rounded, physical coach, you have a background both in PT as well as the strength and conditioning, as well as kettlebell sport. And I got a wonderful question from a listener, and I'm gonna fall on my sword and say I lost the email. I don't know where the question went. I'm so omni-channel that I literally spent 20 minutes trying to find it, and I can't find the freaking email. But the gist of it was. Um, as a kettlebell sport athlete, how should I approach GPP and incorporate it into my training? And I was like, well, I could tackle that question on my own, or I could bring in my friend Mike, and we can talk about it. So I think we'll start first with what is GPP? Can you define the concept of general physical preparedness for our gentle listeners?
Yeah, so and at the risk of getting hate mail, which I'm sure we're going to get regardless of what either one of us says, because I don't think we've ever done an episode together where we didn't get blown up for something. It's like
Troll's
and
gonna troll, man. Whatever.
keep it coming. I love that shit. At a rudimentary level, GPP is your non-sport specific training that you're going to be doing. So while you're primarily a kettlebell sport athlete, it's going to be your non-kettlebell sport training that you're going to be doing to make you more ready to compete, more equipped to compete at a higher level, building those foundational skills, muscle, cardio, and mobility that you're going to need to maximize your platform performance. In a Gen Pop environment, even if you've got a recreational sport lifter, right? I mean, they're not really going to be, their primary goal is not platform performance. They come to your club a couple of times a week to, get a good kick-ass workout with sport, but whether they compete or not, maybe not. It's 55 years old and stuck on 8 kilos for the last 3 years, thinks that's great. You know what? That's awesome. It's just a really kick-ass workout. But what are you doing beyond that, right? Are we just sitting here just like banging out a million snatches every week, or are we really looking at that total athlete? And that's where GPP really comes in, is that more holistic view of how we deal with athlete performance. And I use the term athlete to mean anybody who's willing to walk into the gym and pick up my kettlebells.
Yeah. I think I have a saying like, we're all athletes, act accordingly, because whether or not you choose to leverage that athleticism to compete, that's a personal choice. But I feel like human beings evolved as physical creatures. And one of the reasons we have some of the health effects that we have right now is we've gotten a long ways away from being hunter gatherers, and we spend a lot more time sitting on our computers, hunting memes and gathering information and being snarky with one another. And we need to stimulate that all around athleticism that is required to actually step onto a platform and compete safely, or just pick up the kettlebells in your gym without risking
For
blowing
sure.
your disc or something stupid.
Well, I mean, and even to take it a little bit sort of in a sort of, at the risk of almost going side tangent, right? And going down that functional fitness rat hole that people tend to go down. When you really think about it, right? If you have ever tried to wrestle a 4-year-old to go to the pediatrician, you are creating an athletic event, all right? If you have ever tried to get, in my case, a 90-pound dog into the back of your car to go to the vet, or out of, or like from running around a tree while you're on a walk in the woods or a hike with the dog, you do need that sort of functional athleticism, and we're talking all planes of movement. We're not talking just going forward and backwards in that sagittal plane over and over, which most people tend to do. But it's like life moves rotationally. Life is multi-planar, and that's really where GPP is key. I would actually offer that for most people, a GPP is more valuable than sport-specific training, probably for 90% of the people that are out there, especially if you're sitting at a desk all day and you're, terribly upper crossed, lower crossed, freaking
All
hot.
right, pause. Upper crust and lower crust.
Yeah.
Nerd out on me a little bit. Explain
All right,
your
man.
nerddom here. We gotta give people what those terms mean.
All right, so when we're looking, and the terms are largely sort of going, those terms are going out of vogue because, with anything in exercise science is going to change. But when we're looking at an upper cross syndrome, right, it's that desk sitter, right?
Hunched over at a desk at a keyboard, shoulders
Right.
rolled forward.
Right, so it's
Backing.
tight, short packs, it's the T-Rex arms, it's the traps getting up on your ears, it's all of this stuff, where you're starting to do those corrective exercises where you're getting that pull down and you're really working those opposite side muscles. Lower crosses again, and it's difficult for me to, I can't very well do it because camera won't hit, but if you think about that chair position where those knees are kind of coming up, and you're starting to get your lower back is getting that curve, that lordotic curve, because your abs are just softening up and everything hurts in the lower back, getting to those lower cross and with
Pelvic tilt. What's the pelvic angle that's associated with
yeah,
with
it's
it?
usually that anterior pelvic tilt, right? So when your tail tilts back rather than under, so when you get into all those, that's really, I mean, if you take GPP and look at it, at a philosophical level of just sort of what you're trying to accomplish from a matter of quality movement, just moving well tomorrow more than you moved well today. Um, and that sort of day over day general wellness, that is really where your payout on the GPP is going to come in for most people. And then you sprinkle a little sport on it, like freaking Mrs. Dash, and next thing you know, it's like, wow, this fitness is delicious.
So,
So
so in simple terms, GPP basically refers to a broad base of fitness attributes that prepare your body for a variety of physical challenges that exist in day-to-day life.
sure, what you said.
Something like that, right? It's not just about lifting heavier kettlebells or improving technique. It's more of the other things that prepare you to perform on the platform, but also to prepare you outside of any specific attribute. That's why it's called general physical preparedness, right? It's like I
Yeah.
mean, it was CrossFit before CrossFit was the thing, right? Like that's what GPP really was about, was like being prepared for anything.
Yeah, can you take your groceries out of the car and not have it hurt your back, right? Can you do the dude thing of like taking all the bags at one shot? Because every guy does it. Don't even tell me you haven't, right? It's like
Oh
you
yeah, no,
have
this is
every bag in one trip. You-
the everyday Olympics, right? How many grocery bags can you carry from the car to the house, right? Like
all of them.
all of them. Yeah.
The
Or
answer is all of them. Well, how many are in the car? It doesn't matter. I will, as a matter of personal pride, every damn one of these things is going in one trip.
you got them around your neck. It's like cutting off circulation. You're like, I'm getting them all. I don't care.
Well, and when you start rolling those plastic bags up your sleeve, and next thing you know, your arm is going numb, and you got stripes. When
You got the like variety pack of sparkling water on top of your head. You're just like setting it on there and balancing it while you're carrying it.
yeah, it's like I'm always really impressed when you try and do it with a Costco run, but I mean, we'll call Safeway good enough.
So, all right. So let's break down what some of the key components of GPP might be, or some not components, but like the physical attributes that we're trying to train. Like if I'm thinking of them, I'm saying like maximal strength, strength endurance, um, power output,
Yeah,
um, cardio endurance, joint mobility, muscular flexibility, and then if I'm going to throw one in that is not physical, even though it says general physical preparedness, I would say the general mental preparedness of just handling adversity and being mentally tough and prepared to do physical things that are hard.
yeah. I mean, I'd say that's it, and I'm going to agree with you on that whole mental thing. If you really take a look at a lot of stuff, it is much more mentally difficult than it is physically. Everybody knows the sort of the classic drowning rat story. The drowning rat study that was done, where they dropped rats into the water, and they would keep treading water, and then they would drown. But then when they knew somebody was going to pluck them out, they would tread a little longer because they knew the end was coming, right? It's that classic knowledge of performance, knowledge of results, that KPKR thing. And then the Navy uses that for special warfare training, that same sort of philosophy of pushing through. It's like your body's going to quit far later than your brain will in most cases. And I generally believe that a good GPP will help with that. I also like it from the angle of you pick up something that you did not have any confidence you could pick up. You go out for that next couple of days, man, you are ready to freaking fight God. So,
Spoken
yeah,
like one of the chosen tribe.
it's, exactly. Wrestles with God is sort of right baked into it. But yeah, I mean, that mental toughness thing is really. I mean, I know it gets cliche, where people start talking about grit and bootstraps and all that bullshit. But the reality is just having the confidence to know it's like I've done this before. I got this. That's powerful.
Yeah, deep water is one of those things that like you hear fighters talk about it. And I mean like MMA fighters and combat athletes, you hear them talking about I'm going to take them out to deep water and drown them because I've been in the deep water and they haven't, right? Like it's that whole mental preparedness of like I am ready for the adversity in a way that other people are not. That's one of the things people admired about Steve Prefontaine, his whole thing of, the only acceptable pace is a suicide pace, right? Because in that event, I'm the only one who can win. He just felt he was more mentally prepared than anybody else to take it to a level that other people weren't. I think that that is part of GPP. I think that's part of any training, right? Just the
For sure.
intentional introduction of adversity into our life has a huge benefit in a society that is been designed for our maximal comfort.
Well, and if you take a look, right? So I mean, it's like, you were a floor trainer not that long ago, right? And so
I think that might be a bit of a misnomer. Not that long ago is relative, but
well, but it's like
we'll roll with it. We'll roll with it.
we've all worked the floor, right? And every gym has some sort of an intake where there's a new member who walks in there, and most gyms is basically it's just a glorified prelude to a sales pitch. But at the end of the day, it's like they all have some sort of a welcome to the gym. Let's see what you need, give you a little guidance. And by the way, I'm 120 an hour. Thank you very much. But if you chop off that last piece and you take a look at what you're looking at as a floor trainer, how many times have you had it that and there's a difference between sort of how men handle it and how women handle it, right? The guys walk in and it's the
Definitely get some shit for this, no matter what you say.
100%, and I'll totally take all of it. But you get the dude walks in, and he's the pudgy 45-year-old guy. He's going back into the gym. The first thing he does is he goes back to his high school routine because that was the last thing. It's like I was a linebacker in high school, and I used to be able to pull 440 pounds off the floor. And you know what? So that should be no problem. And you go ahead and you load up a bar, and that thing's got 135 on it. The guy thinks he's going to fucking die. And then conversely, then you get his wife, right? And she goes in there, and she's all been doing nothing but Les Mis body thrash. And the first thing she's thinking, I'm going to totally catch shit for that one.
Yeah.
Let's do 10,000 reps.
You
But
want a tone, you use the pink weights.
yeah, exactly. It's like if it's covered in neoprene, throw that shit out. We're not even having it here, right? All right. The only pink weight I'm taking is an 8 kilo bell. But and she comes in there and you say, all right, so how do you feel about your deadlift? And she looks over at you and she's like, I don't even know. And it's like, all right, how big of a kettlebell could you pick up off the floor with both hands? If I just told you to like squat and pick that sucker up, however, and they'll look at you and they'll say, I don't know, 10, 15 pounds, right? And you hear it all the time, right? They give you this some bullshit low number. And you look at it, it's like, she's got kids.
Yeah.
Her smallest kid weighs more than that, right? And so you go in there and you pull a 24-kilo kettlebell out, and you put it on the floor and you turn it so she can't see the number. So all she sees is the freaking brand logo, but on the backside away from her, you say, all right, let's go ahead, let's get squared up. She said nothing, goes right up. It's like, how much do you think that weighs? She said, I don't know, 20, 25 pounds. I was like, oh, how about 53? And they'll be like, wait, what? I'm like, right. So now let's talk about how strong you actually are. Not how strong you thought you were, how strong you actually are. Because when you take that barrier away from their brain, their GPP just gets that much better, that much faster. Because at the end of the day, most people have no comprehension of what their body is built for or what it can do until you train them through a GPP kind of a model. They just don't get it.
Yeah, for the although I will give us the equivocation if we are speaking in generalities just from our years of experience, that what I agree with you. What I've typically experienced is that women have been conditioned to think that they're weaker than they are, or they've been avoiding heavy weights for most of their life because they've been told that's going to make them get bulky, as opposed to just like strong and lean and sexy as hell. But and then
Strong women are hot.
Men are just too proud to admit that that they can't lift heavy weights anymore, or what they think in their head is a heavy weight. And
it's Al Bundy at Polk High.
Yeah, back in high school, back in my day, I could do, and it's like, yeah, well, we're not back in your day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like 27 years ago. Oh, so you mean 4 cars and 3 jobs ago? Right, got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let's roll that one back a minute, buddy.
All right, so we've touched a little bit on why GPP is important for the general population, but for athletes, and particularly, I'm going to say cyclical sport athletes like kettlebell sport athletes. Why is GPP important for cyclical sport athletes?
Well, if you really take a look at it from the simplest standpoint, right? In kettlebell sport, there's really three lifts. Everything's in sure, there's different time formats, right? But you're basically looking at cleans, jerks, and snatches. And it's like, oh well, but what about half snatch? It's still a snatch, all right. It's like
It's the
doubles,
snatch
singles.
variant.
Right. It's the same, like three basic patterns that you're going to be doing. So at a rudimentary level, if all you're doing is your sport lifts, you're just pattern overloading. That's all you're doing. You're hitting three patterns over and over and over and over and over. And as much as there are some folks out there that would like to tell you that, like, you know, certain specific complexes are all you ever need, Turkish get-ups. At the end of the day, diversity of movement is better for hitting more muscles in more diverse ways and really prevents you from just plateauing quite as badly.
Can I add a just a little little bit of variant to that? I'll say intentional variation of movement, not random variation of, not just like throwing random any movement in is GPP. No, like it has to be intentional. There has to be some for, not that there's no room for randomness. Like don't hear what I'm not saying, because life is a bit random, but if we're trying to intentionally develop, if we're trying to develop the attributes that we laid out, right, there has to be some intentionality to your movement choice, even in your GPP. Even though GPP can be a great place to introduce more variance
Oh, for
into your
sure.
plan, there still has to be intentionality around the exercise selection and that you're putting in for GPP.
Yeah, just I mean, we used to have fun in the gym, and I'm sure everybody's seen them, the fitness dice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The dice of doom. We
yeah, the
had two
dice
of
of
them.
doom,
The dice
right?
of doom or the deck
Uh,
of doom.
yeah, and so it's like you pull out the deck of cards, and I mean, it's like all the boot camp tricks. And we've all done it, but that's not the whole workout, man. It's like that's fitness sorbet,
That's the
right?
amuse bouche.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? It's it's that little palate cleanser before you get into your finisher, right? So it's like we completely do that. My guys actually started calling the dice, they started calling it Happy Fun Ball. Uh, because it's like you go in there and you just lob that sucker and it would bounce off the walls because it's Nerf. And next thing you know, it's like whatever it lands on, it's like, what are we doing? Looks like 20 burpees to me, boys.
There we go. Oh,
But that's fun for some deliberate stuff. I mean, it's sort of like kettlebell flow, right? That's the whole underlying thought of kettlebell flow. A little bit of unplanned movement where you just kind of let your body work is lovely. It's not a GPP.
it can be a component of GPP. I actually love the idea of part of your GPP being some randomness, a degree of
Sure.
randomness, because again, that's life. I'll do the quick, like I had a moment today. They were doing the Simba cam at the Twins game, right, where people are holding up their kids. I did it with Kira, who's 10 and weighs 87 pounds, and she had her sign that said it's my 10th birthday, and I still full on lifted her up, full, like I did a full on, like, full on thruster and held her up there and held her for a good 10 seconds, got on the jumbotron holding her overhead with the sign, because she's, but and I put her down, and she was laughing, and like, it's like, this is why I do kettlebells. And my wife was like, yeah, how long are you going to be able to do that? I said, I don't know, hopefully 20 more years.
Yeah.
Like, no
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
how big
I,
she gets,
I
I
don't
want
really know, but I'm gonna be sore as shit tomorrow.
I'm gonna give it a go, right? Like, I kind of want to always be able to at least try, but like that, I love that. That's what GPP is for, is those
For
unplanned
sure.
types of expression of strength.
For sure. And there's just in sort of how you even build GPPs, you should have a bit of playtime kind of built into it. And I use playtime not in a diminutive way, but in a matter of you should be having fun when you go to the gym. You should be feeling confident enough to just like do some random silly thing every so often and just see how it feels. Um, and it's like I'm sure you've done it. Like, you'll be in the gym with some of your athletes, and you'll do some dumb kettlebell trick, right? That's kind of just because you just got bored. Like you'll stick your foot through the bale and just lift your legs straight up in the air, and You know, people be like, "Ooh," you know, but at the end of the day, it's like I literally didn't plan to do that. I just saw the kettlebell, and my brain said, "I wonder if I can pick this up with my toes." You know, it's like, and you do that stuff, and that is a GPP kind of a function, right? You know, it's kind of, you know, you bring the bell up, you flip, you go into a waiters, and you pop it, and you do a, you know, 360, you do a 360 on it, and people are like, "Ooh," like, yeah, but I can do this because I'm strong enough to handle it, and I play with GPP, and it gives me the ability to do it. I mean, everybody talks about kettlebell juggling as some sort of magical discipline. It's not. It's just it's playing with heavy things to see what your body can handle.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought up kettlebell juggling for two reasons. A, I think it's super cool. It's one of my it is one of my favorite like ways to introduce play, unplanned play, kind of
Absolutely.
into your routine. And also I just asked Bill and Steph Jorgensen, who are here in the Twin Cities, and if they would do a kettlebell juggling demo at the WKSF North American Championship. It sounds like they're checking. They've got a national competition coming up, like not too far in advance or too far subsequent to that. So kind of make sure that it fits in their training plan. But they're like, that might be a good way to like do a dry run of the routine. So I'm waiting to hear whether whether Steph can do a demo while we're tabulating the results. I was like, oh well, while the Dr. Sarahs are doing spreadsheet magic at the back of the room, maybe the rest of us can watch Steph do Steph do her thing with kettlebell juggling.
Well, it's funny because like Bill, who's always been kind of a classic hardstyle guy, you know, maces and hardstyle have kind of been his thing. Like Bill suddenly discovered sport, you know, and
And
he's
he's great, and
actually
he's great at it because he's got
he's
general physical preparedness.
right, exactly. I was going to say it's like that general strength that he's got has translated to his athleticism, and then you know, Steph's a freaking beast, man.
Oh, it's so funny to me when she posts the stuff, like she posts her juggling routines and stuff, and of course the trolls come out online. You get guys are like, what is the point of this? Or, oh, grandma's gonna break her back, or you know, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
grandma's gonna break your back when she
yeah,
freaking
exactly.
snatches you off the ground.
Yeah, go say that to her face and see what happens. This is fuck about and find out Friday. We'll see what happens, right? Like
On the bright side, she's really
she's such a
nice.
nice person. She would never do
She's
that, but
really nice.
it's just it always
The fact
makes
that
me
she could
laugh.
probably dead snatch you
Like,
overhead.
dude, like you have no idea who you're messing with, but
She's so nice, but she's one of the strongest humans I've
oh,
ever
yeah.
seen.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so cool. All right, so GPP is important for a couple of reasons. It prevents pattern overload, right, from cyclical sports. So it can be a way to counterbalance. It can be a way to counterbalance some of the repetitive movement training that you're doing. It can be a way to develop. You can also use it as a way to develop more of your sport specific capacity if you need that. It's
Absolutely.
also a way to introduce some randomness and fun into what can otherwise be a same shirt different, you know, same shit different shirt type of sport, because it is only three movements, right? So it can be a way to reduce some of your boredom and add some variety to your training, if it's done so in a fun and intentional way.
Well, and let's also remember, along the fun and intentional, right? You've got safety. So I'm real big on moving smartly and safely.
Live to
So
train tomorrow. Rule number one of the Twin Cities Kettlebell Club.
yeah,
Live to train tomorrow.
yeah. As I tell people, it's like we die on the platform, we live in training. You know, it's like
Love it.
there is no reason whatsoever to get yourself hurt just for the sake of I saw this thing online, let's do it. And it's like, you know,
The online kettlebell challenge this week or this month was something that's way beyond my capability, but I wanted to do it.
I think what is it this month? Isn't it basically just like a
I
one
think
and
it's a
a
five.
half minute triathlon or
Oh,
something?
oh yeah, it's a new month. I was this last month. It was just a five. I think it was just a 5 minute long cycle. Was last month. It's not the online kettlebell challenge doesn't make ridiculous shit. Like you choose your own weights. They just tell you what the challenge is, and you choose what weight you're going to compete at. It's just I see so many people are like, well, it was this was the challenge this month, and so I decided to do it with a 28. And it's like, when's the last time you picked up a 28? I don't know, like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, what was the last time you picked up a 28? When I put it on the rack after I bought them.
Yeah.
They haven't come off since. They're a little rusty, but it'll work.
So what are some of the most common approaches that you see from a GPP perspective? I know one that I can definitely call out is what I'll just generally call the like more of the same, more do more of what you already did as a GP under the auspices of calling it GPP. Like you just did jerk. Now I'm gonna have you do 100 squats and 50 jumpy squats and 50
And then
lunges.
and then 80 bumps.
Right, like that. I have seen that. That is what
The
I would call the overload method of
Yeah,
GPP.
the
Where
St. Petersburg model.
yes, I I wasn't gonna specifically call out any particular municipalities, but yes, that would be the St. Petersburg School of GPP is more of the same. Like
Duh.
yeah. What are some of the other common approaches that you're familiar with?
So there's a couple of them that are in there, and I know that like the way that we do it specifically within my club is we counter program, right? And so when we're talking about counter programming, you know that there's certain movement patterns and certain muscle groups that get pounded pretty good when you're doing regular kettlebell sport training. And so whenever you've got one set of muscles that you're hitting every single week or multiple times a week, there's almost a guarantee that there's ones on the opposite side you're not hitting.
So give us a specific example from kettlebell sport. Let's just say kettlebell jerk. You're a biathlon athlete, and you know you're going to do a lot of jerks and snatches. Like what are some of the counter programming that you would recommend in GPP for
Sure.
biathlon athletes?
Right. So let's say if you're all right, so let's take a look at jerk, right? So you're definitely quad heavy and traps heavy. Any way you do it, quads, rhomboids, traps, just getting pounded, right?
Triceps.
Tricep to an
I'm gonna add
extent.
triceps and pecs a little bit as your stabilizers overhead.
Yeah, a little bit of pec minor, not so much pec major. So when we take a look at what's not getting hit, right? So while everybody says, well, in the rack, your glutes are engaged, it was like, sure, but it's a synergist at best.
The
So
stabilizer, it's not the same.
right, it's a stabilizer or a synergist at best, right? So okay, fine. So you're getting squats. What about lats? Okay, well, I don't know any kettlebell movements that are really particularly good for lats, right?
There
In
is no vertical pull component in kettlebell sport.
None. And while I can use the appliance, right? If I go to an outward grip in a row, there's actually some really nice studies out there to show that actually gets EMG studies higher lat activation than a lat pull.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean,
You just dropped knowledge on me. I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
yeah, I didn't know it either. But I was looking at
This
it's
is
like,
why we science.
yeah, I science hard. Uh, it's so much sciencing. Just don't ask me to math. That's going to get hideous. But when you start taking a look at things, that gorilla posed supinated grip is going to get you that really nice lat engagement in a row if you've got your torso about here, not here, right?
And for those of you listening to the audio, first angle was what, like at 110 degrees at the hip, and the second was at 90 degrees, right? So we're not going fully flat parallel to the floor.
Correct.
That's not gonna get you lat activation, but posture up, open at the hip, kind of your classic backswing position in like double bell long cycle, right? That
Pretty much, yeah.
120-degree angle.
Yeah, 120, 130 opened hip.
Yeah.
And you've got the biggest thing with that is your thumbs are pointed out.
And
Get
that's
those
that's
get those
that's
shoulders.
critically important because that's what gets the lats activated in that position for scapular retraction and depression.
Absolutely. And so if you start getting that depression or retraction, and I'm not even getting into tipping or any sort of fanciness with it, and you basically just You squeeze your butt to stabilize your lower back, and you go ahead and start getting a pull. You can actually get a phenomenal lat activation on that you're not going to get in kettlebell sport training itself. It's not a movement pattern that you would see in your normal sport specific movement. The best you're hoping to get on that is during the clean, where it's sort of a pseudo row on the upswing of a clean. And so that gets neglected. So your GPP should fill that hole.
What about negative? What about negatives on a grind? We'll say on a strict press grind, right? If you're going with a heavy weight, because this is something I've heard from hardstyle practitioners, is you can get a lot of lat activation just by working the negative component on a heavy bell off of a strict press by controlling the descent.
For sure. Yeah, that's absolutely legit. Eccentric controls are phenomenal. I'd have to pull the numbers. I haven't looked at them in a bit. A deliberate concentric movement is usually still going to beat a sort of tangential eccentric movement.
A negative eccentric, right? So that's the
Yeah.
so for those non-kinesiology nerds listening, the concentric is the press or the explosive component, right? You think about a bench press, it's the moving the weight off of the chest. The eccentric is the weight coming back to the chest. So if we're controlling the negative portion of the movement where the weight is coming back to the starting position as opposed to the positive component of the movement, that's the concentric component. So
Yeah, we're
just to
not going
define
to get
the
into the
kinesiology.
changing of joint angle from anatomical position. Yeah, all right, so we're good. But yeah, you need to be able to work both concentric and eccentric in most of your main joint combinations if you really want to have a decent GPP. But what you're also looking at is things like when again, let's go back to that clean, right? That sport clean, right? Where you've got that high extension in the backswing, right? Where your butt goes up in the air and then you drop the knee and you kind of come through that power position almost like you do in an Olympic pull. You're basically, it's just effectively the same as an extended gunslinger swing, so when you're coming out of that, bang, those finger guns come out, and you get the biceps. That's awesome, but what you're not really getting is that's really sort of almost a short length row as much as anything else, right? If you really think about a lot of those sport movements on the hamstring, it's really plyometric. So that drop is effectively just to get your butt up in the air and extend that hamstring, and then you go into that dip. You break the knee to unwind that hamstring, to snap the rubber band, if you will. And that's still not getting everything, right? So calves. Calves get jack shit in kettlebell sport other than by
I disagree, sir.
Oh no, man, that's totally secondary. There's nothing intentional about your calves in sport.
Oh, not if you're doing good triple extension in the launch phase. If you are getting good triple
What
extension
lift?
in long cycle or jerk, I mean the jerk phase of long cycle or jerk in isolation, right? Like if you're getting good explosive extension at the ankle
Yeah,
joint,
for 3 freaking inches.
yeah, but for volume and plyometric loading and unloading as well as just getting into the good position on it as well.
So I'm gonna go.
I'm
So
gonna
I'm gonna go
disagree
ahead.
with you on that one.
Oh, you can, but I'm going to go ahead and also kines nerd out on you a little bit. Drop here, right? So what you're looking at on that triple extension, or even in this case, because again, typically on a jerk, you're looking at about 5 or 6 inches of drop, typically for most people, right? About 10% of your height in inches is about where most people are going for a jerk drop, right? So if you've got somebody who's 60 inches, you're talking maybe a 6-inch drop at best, right, for that dip. It's all standing, right? So if you're looking at standing, first off, you've got if you go to full extension, you're talking probably what 120, 130 degrees ankle dorsiflexion when you get into that good squat. That's a hell of a lot more than 6 inches. Hell of a lot more movement going through that gastroc, then you're going to get in a jerk. Second
Well,
thing is,
I'm not saying that there shouldn't be GPP for your calves. I'm just saying I disagree with you that you're saying that the
you're
calves
getting some. You're
don't
not
get
getting.
much
You're not getting.
load.
It's not quality. It's not what it needs to be. Here's the other thing, right? It's all gastroc because it's standing, right? Where's the soleus get in there? Soleus is best benefited when you're in a seated position. That's why things like
It is definitely gastroc heavy. You're 100% right about that. I will I will get no argument there.
right. So again, in your GPP, if you're looking to round out that lower leg, right, that would be a good place where you'd want to put in a seated calf raise. Or some sort of a seated step up where you're bringing that dorsiflexion further back in your squat depth position. You can do this with thrusters, especially if you've got your toe on something. So you can actually do a toe elevated thruster. You can do slant boards, works fantastic.
I have
Uh,
slant boards in my garage right now.
yeah, I mean,
They're
but
not they're collecting chalk and dust more than they should be, but
I mean, kettlebell gym, man, everything collects chalk.
yeah, well, it's more so from lack of use than
I
just
was thinking it's more like forestry firefighting, right? When you go out and like, hawk out the black booger after you go ahead, it's like kettlebell guys are the equivalent, right? It's like, you snot rocket and freaking Viking chalk comes out.
hollow dust.
Valhalla dust is blowing out of my left nostril. Hi, Ross. Uh,
I swear, Ossifer, it's just Valhalla dust.
I have this guy I know. He's made a lot of chalk. It's American though, so it's good.
The good stuff.
But yeah, no, you're going to definitely need to fill in those holes, right? Pec major. Pec major doesn't get jack at a kettlebell sport. I mean, it's like I know it's like, but look, I have a chest. It's like I have never seen a kettlebell sport lifter who's got that freaking lovely pec ledge. It just you're not getting that other than through a GPP.
Yeah, mine is still there from many years of bench pressing, right? Like I did so much of that in my college football high school and college football career that it's a much easier to maintain than it is to build it. But yeah, if
Yeah,
you're
I
looking for
mean,
that,
I will typically incorporate some sort of a dumbbell fly into a GPP for a lot of my clients. Some sort of a pec centric movement. Even if you don't have a lot of equipment, an offset push up works fantastic in a pinch. I like the offset push up, where you've got one hand up on top of a kettlebell or a med ball or something just to extend that range out for you. But yeah, pecs get no love with kettlebell sport in the same way.
so now what about so we're talking about common approaches to GPP, and so we've talked about the St. Petersburg school, right? You load
Just
more,
do more of what you were doing, just
do
until everything explodes.
do more of what you were doing, but they only do that on training days. They don't do that on the off days. The off days that are more around other movements. And to be fair to like Dennis and the St. Petersburg athletes, they're doing 2.5 hour sessions where they're doing all sorts of stuff. They're doing mobility and running and all like they're
Sure.
doing
And
super long
and that's an
sessions.
hour and a half longer than most athletes will spend in the gym.
Yeah, they're doing fewer sessions of longer duration and hitting all sorts of stuff, all, the entire over the entire session. But so we've got that approach, which, you and I both don't use that approach very much just because it's not realistic for the type of athletes that we work with for the most part is what I'll say. And then
I get you for an hour 3 times a week.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like if I can get a 6 hour weekly training budget, I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing.
That's twice what the average trainer gets.
Yeah. So
Most trainers are going to get, 3, maybe 4 times a week for an hour.
so we're thinking about it similarly. We're like, okay, we need to counter program and get the best bang for our buck on
Yep.
the things that we're not getting from kettlebell sport. We need to make sure we fill those gaps to reduce injury risk and also improve performance by developing well-rounded athletes. Um, what do you think about CrossFit as a GPP modality for kettlebell sport athletes? Because I know a lot of athletes that do CrossFit as their primary GPP, and they do that separate from their kettlebell sport training, and it's generally been very popular.
So I've gone back and forth over the years on my views of CrossFit, right? And again, at the risk of blowing up your troll count and having all the Glassmanites start showing up and throwing monkey feces at me. Uh, you know, I've come to kind of appreciate and understand what it provides for people. Um, I don't necessarily see CrossFit and kettlebell sport being as good of a pairing as some people would think. And
Why is
not,
that?
well, it's not to disparage either one. It's like, again, I actually like both. I think that they're just phenomenally different. The philosophy of CrossFit is I can do anything, anywhere, with any appliance on no notice, adapt, overcome, and conquer. I love that. Right. I mean, and again, it's like I work out of a CrossFit. So it's like I'm, you know,
You're not
our
coming at it from a perspective of hating CrossFit. It's just you're saying as a
not at
kettlebell
all. I
sport
just
expert that it might not be the best choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think philosophically, I think they're just different, right? And so the way that CrossFit programs is somewhere between undulating and semi-linear, but it's designed for you to be there 5 or 6 days a week. Because the WODs, if you march them out, everybody accuses CrossFit of being random, and is 100% not.
No,
That is
not anymore. That was a valid. I will say that was a valid challenge. I'm going to say 10 years ago.
yeah.
When there was a shit ton of CrossFit boxes everywhere. Everybody was trying to ride the wave, and they jumped in and opened a CrossFit box. And so you had people with no knowledge of programming that were just opening a CrossFit box, and you would get random programming at a lot of those places. But I think a lot of those places have closed, and
Well,
that
also most
remain
people are
post
taking
COVID.
their WODs from HQ. And so they are fairly centrally programmed at this point. So if you actually sit down and you take a look, and if you don't, it's like you look at it day over day, it looks very random. If you lay the month out and you're like, yeah.
Random for the people that don't show up as consistently as they're supposed to, because they miss the days that are hitting
Right, it's like, well,
the
today's a
oppositional
strength heavy
muscles that they're
day,
supposed
and
to be getting, or the different attributes that they're supposed to be getting if they come on regular cadence.
it is, but it's designed as like a 5 or 6 day a week kind of a thing, which means that if you are going to CrossFit every other day and going to kettlebell sport every other day, you've effectively turned it into random. And so it's difficult to kind of balance those two out. And
I'll agree with that. I have several athletes that use CrossFit as their GPP, which is fine. I'm like, if that's how you want to do it, it's fine. It just I have found it to be challenging because of that exact thing. Like if we're doing 3 kettlebell sport sessions a week and they're doing 3 CrossFit sessions as their other
the
GPP,
phasing is going to conflict.
the phasing conflicts, or just like what they're doing on the days that they can do CrossFit doesn't line up with the counter programming that I would prescribe, knowing what they're doing for their kettlebell sport sessions. It just becomes a very challenging logistical nightmare to coordinate all of the loading on that. Now, but with that said, I will say if I have total control and I can be like, hey, I'm going to give you 3 kettlebell sport sessions and 3 CrossFit style GPP sessions, but I'm the one prescribing them, I can do that all day. Like I can, that's fine, because then it's just a modality for that counter
Sure,
program.
because it's the same programmer kind of marching them out across the month.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we do within Tough Temple Kettle Club. And again, we're co-located with Tough Temple CrossFit, right? As well as Tough Temple Barbell Club, as well as Tough Temple High Rocks. I mean, so it's like we have all of these modalities, and we sort of look at the gym as a collection of boutiques within a boutique, because you do have very different sort of ways of going about it within each of the tracks.
Princess cut diamond, you just have all the facets that make it sparkly.
I'm sparkly. Uh, I'm beyond sparkly, man. I'm just outright sexy at this point. But no, like within Tough Temple Kettle Club, we have three classes that are offered, right, to accomplish that sort of hybridization that you need to deal with. And so, our kettlebell sport program is typically built on undulating periodicity, week over week. So you'll have the same workout for the entire week. It'll be offered 3 times a week, but it's undulating, right? So week one might be heavy doubles, week two might be speedy singles. And so it's going to bang around a little bit. But then we have two other programs that sort of are intentional to complement that from a GPP standpoint. We have one that's called Kettlebell Combine, which is straight interval programming. So you're looking at 2 minutes on, 30 seconds rest, 1 minute on, 1 minute rest, 3 rounds, three of those sets. So you've basically got 9 minute salvos, three of them, and a 5 minute AMRAP warm up. Works out about 52, 54 minutes of programming, but it's just a beat down. I mean, it's straight raw endurance. The movements are deliberately simplified, so it's like it's a goblet squat for 2 minutes. It's like, well, how heavy? How heavy do you feel? I want you to run an RPE of about 9. And I'll get into RPE in a second. Um, but that runs, there's not a specific, because it's always endurance, it's not phased. It doesn't need to be. And then our monthly program that we have for our GPP is called Fit and Flow. And that's straight linear. That's just straight linear programming. And you get a new one at the beginning of every month, and we work on it in the month, and we try and shoot for a 5 to 8% week over week increase in volume or strength. And some months it's going to be a little bit, more, heavy shit is the way you get your number up. Other months it's going to be set based on time, and we want you to get more reps next week than you got last week. And so we want to see your rep counts going up, because at the end of the day, the net effect is the total kilo volume went up. But that's straight raw linear periodicity on that, our linear phasing on that. And so the combination of those three really tends to make a very well-rounded athlete when they're coming to them on a regular basis. But if I'm competing in a practical sense for time in this person's schedule, and I'm asking them to take 5 sessions a week with the kettlebell program, they can't really be doing CrossFit at the same time, because CrossFit is also saying, I want you to do 5 sessions a week. And High Rocks is also asking them to do 3 to 5 sessions a week.
Yeah.
And our barbell program is also asking them to do 3 to 5 sessions a week. At the end of the day, you have to kind of pick a track. Yeah. And each one is its own GPP. They're not necessarily interchangeable GPPs.
Yeah, I would say you have to pick a highest priority. You can probably have two parallel tracks that you run as a if we're talking about being able to go after both, two approaches at the same time, but you still can only have one priority, right?
Right. You have a primary and a complementary,
Yeah.
but you're really, there's only so much you can do before you start running into overtraining issues, start running a high injury risk because they're just doing too much or doing it too fast or doing it
Conjugate load is just really high if you're doing high level CrossFit and high level kettlebell sport at the same time.
too much.
It's really hard to recover. It's really hard to line those things up in a good way. But if you're like, CrossFit's my thing and I just do kettlebell sport for for funsies or for a complementary training, cool, or vice versa. Or you can phase it where it's like, right now I want to get ready for a kettlebell sport competition. I need 3 months to get ready. And that is one thing I will say, like, Sarah Fornero is a great example. Now, don't compare yourself to Sarah Fornero if you're not somebody that already has a really high level of skill developed, because Sarah spent years developing her high level of proficiency at kettlebell sport. She
While
stepped
also being a phenomenal runner.
Yeah, she's just a great athlete all around, but especially as an endurance athlete. But she spent many years developing her skill as a kettlebell sport athlete, and then stepped away from kettlebell sport being her primary focus to do more CrossFit stuff because she was having more fun with it. She needed a bit of a break, and she's been kicking ass at CrossFit, and then just decided she's going to compete in a kettlebell sport competition again, and she only needs a couple of months to shift her focus because she already has the proficiency and skill, and because her conditioning level and her overall strength has been so well developed by CrossFit. She was able to come back and compete at a high level at kettlebell sport very quickly, because it's really like taking an already sharp chef's knife and just honing it before you slice a tomato, right? Like that's why we
You're
call
just
them
picking a
honing
different. You're
phrases.
just picking something else to slice, but the knife is sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I
Yeah,
will say, that is one benefit to like CrossFit, is if you do CrossFit those 5, 6 days a week for an extended period of time, and you haven't completely neglected the bells entirely, or you already had a high level of skill at the bells, you can pick them back up pretty quickly, and you just
for
focus
sure.
on the bells for a short period of time, and it's like, oh man, how did Sarah not pick up the kettlebells for 9 months with any seriousness or any regularity, and
And
then
in
come in
30
and just
days, she's looking pretty good again.
yeah,
And
and then how did she just
yeah,
come in and kick everyone's ass as well? It's because she kept the knife very sharp, from a general physical preparedness perspective. She was very focused and very sharp from all of her CrossFit training, and then she just shifts her focus for a little while to kettlebell sport, and the skill comes back, and all of that
absolutely.
general physical preparedness is there. But if she would probably be the first to say, like, if she was going to go after personal bests, she would need more than a couple of months to go after personal best. She would need to really
Sure.
focus on kettlebell sport and make that her primary for a little while before she could focus on going after PBs.
See, I actually touched on something. I don't know if you did it intentionally or not, but I'll say yes, you
Let's
totally
say
did
yeah.
this because you're the evil genius. But what I'm looking at is you did sort of touch on the specificity through GPP kind of angle. Um, and I've seen this with CrossFitters, right? So one of my lifters, Jill, is a very accomplished Olympic weightlifter, very accomplished CrossFitter. Showed up one day in a kettlebell sport class and said, "Hey, this looks interesting. Do you mind if I try it?" Jumped in, caught the bug. First time out on platform, nailed a rank one. After not a tremendous amount of training.
Not bad for a first effort.
Yeah, I mean, she's a really fierce competitor, and she's very strong, and she knows her body, and she knows how to use her body in a very athletic way. Went in, kicked ass, took names, did a couple of comps, ranked very well in all of them. Told her, I said, it's time to move up a bell. The reason you stopped at rank one is the table stopped there, not because you're skilled. You ran out of table.
Ran
Uh,
out of runway on the 20s or the 16s or whatever it was. She probably 16s. She probably ran.
exactly. It's like, and I told her, it's like, it's time. You're sort of at a breakpoint decision, right? Do you want to be a very fast 5 minute lifter that racks the table? Or you want to move up to tens, or do you want to move up a bell size and stay a 5 minute lifter? Your call. But she was unfamiliar when she first started with me with sport technique, because sport technique is not commonly taught in GPP environments or CrossFit or really anything other than sport, to be quite honest, is pretty niche. And shifting a hinged lifter to a pendulum is difficult, because if they're a really accomplished hinge style lifter, and you start saying, "Yeah, I want you to move your hips backwards, a 180 from the way you've normally done it. And I want you to treat it more like Olympic lifting, where there's two dips and a hamstring extension in the backswing." And they look at you like, "Well, what do you mean I don't just have to sit there and just hinge over and over?" And I say, "Well, you can. You're going to die in about 90 seconds. You might get 120 out of it if you're pretty fit. By the way, it's a 10-minute sport." And they look at you and they go, "What?" It's like, yeah, you need to sling load that thing a little bit better than just like popping the hip and jamming your heels into the ground as hard as you can over and over and over again. It's like, yeah, you need to get a little bit looser, a little floppier. Oh, by the way, I'm going to turn your hips 180 degrees from the way they normally go, right? So when you go into that backswing, instead of bending your knees and snap and get ready for that snap, yeah, it's like, I don't want you in a straight leg out on your four.
I want your knees fully extended with your hamstrings fully loaded all the way through the posterior chain before we break.
Yeah, and they look at you, it's like, well, how do I get out of this? It's like, you just bend your knee and pull. And it's like, you go with God, man. And they look at you like you've lost your damn mind because they didn't have that specificity. So there is certain portability in GPP into sport, but there's also certain things that really aren't as portable as you might think they ought to be. And you can't really bank on portability from a generalist into something as specialized as kettlebell sport. A kettlebell sport snatch is ungodly technical, and it's like,
I would say the same thing about Olympic lifting. I would say the same thing about powerlifting. I would say the same
yep,
thing about strongman. Like, as somebody who has done all of those things at various levels of proficiency, the ability of GPP to carry you across those domains is um, as limited as the generality would imply.
correct,
There is a necessity for both GPP and SPP, right? Sport specific, sport preparedness.
absolutely. And so while being and while being generally strong and having generally good conditioning and generally good cardio and generally good mobility and all those sort of wonderful facets of fitness means that you're going to get there faster. It doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to get there.
So to put a bow on it, how would you recommend someone approaches their balance of training between GPP versus sport specific training? If they, so I'll give you two scenarios. You've got the just, the normal, I just want to be fit and healthy and be able to move well in the world, and somebody that has a sport specific goal. How should those two people approach their different prescription for how much time should they spend on general physical attributes and how much should they spend on sport specific attributes if you have those two kind of goals, one being a general goal and one being more of a sport specific goal?
So, obviously, a sports specific athlete, I'm going to want them doing more of their time on sports specific work than I will with a Gen Pop kind of just want to feel better and not be in pain and feel fit and be able to lift my kids kind of athlete. For a sport specific focused athlete, I am typically going to want them three-ish, maybe four-ish times a week doing sport specific workouts and about twice a week on a GPP. Um, as far as for phasing, that's really a matter of art with your coach as much as anything else, right? I mean, it's like
Yeah,
every
the context is very dependent there. Like every individual is very different, but it sounds like you're saying like 60% of your time should be spent on sport specific training. If you're a sport specific athlete with a sport specific goal, roughly 60% of your time should be spent on sport specific training with 40-ish% dedicated to general physical preparedness. And then
yeah, I mean, yeah,
you could
I
maybe
would go
invert
even.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go even so far as like, especially in a run up to a comp, upwards of 70 or even
Oh
80%.
yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So it's like if you're 30 days out, I don't really care about your GPP that much. If you're
You
three or
should have already built that.
you
Right.
should have
Like,
built that 3 months ago. Whereas sort of your Gen Fit lifter who's like, oh, sure, this seems like fun, give me a set of bells, let's go ahead and I'll give it a try. That toe dip platform person, frankly, the GPP is higher payout for them than the sport specific. So it's almost going to be inverse. Um, so when I do GPP in general, and I don't, and again, phasing is going to depend, but for the most part with GPP, I go heavy. I treat it more like a powerlifting kind of a function. I'm not looking at power. I'm not looking at explosives because I'm going to get that for them in their sport specific training, right? If you are doing a kettlebell jerk or a kettlebell smash, you are inherently explosive. And I'm not looking to put muscle on you by having you do jerks with kettlebells. I'm going to have you do muscle building by saying, you see that bar that's over there on the rack? Yeah, with, a shitload more weight than you think. It's like, yeah, go military press that for me, would you please? So I will program my GPPs more along the lines of a powerlifting workout. So they're going to be much heavier. Um, I'm fairly boring because it works. I mean, like I will use those ACSM standards, right? So, you know, if I'm going raw strength, it's going to be 5, 6, 7 reps, 3, 4 sets. If I'm going for that more hypertrophy function, it's going to be that classic 8 to 12, 3, 4, 5 sets. It's like I don't get real far in the GPP as far as, craziness on the training because frankly, you don't have to. Especially with a general population athlete. Again, with a higher end athlete, different animal, man. Just different animal. It's like, I get somebody who's like, yeah, I'm a CMS. I am going for that master of sports. Like, yeah, dude, you are going to be spending most of your time doing sport lifts. And I'm going to program you on, it's like you're going to be meso, macro, micro phased. I mean, it's like, when's your next comp is going to be my first question that I'm going to ask them. And I'm sitting there counting days back from when that comp is to see where they ought to be. Right.
When do you want to peak? That's always where we start that's where we start with our with like
Right.
when is the peak, when is the peak of the 1 year cycle? And when you're talking about master a sport, like that's super fun
They
because
get
then
like two comps a year probably is about
you're
all
and
they're
but
doing.
you're thinking about a program in the scope of 3 to 5 years. Like
Oh
how do I
yeah.
start building this program with the aperture as wide as it's going to take us 3 years to get us to master a sport? And what does each year within that look like? And then what does each of those years look like? Like like that's now we're going really deep into the nerd waters, but like that's super fun. But those are very
It
few and
takes
far
a
between.
while, man. It's
Those are
like
few and far between. Like you're
yes,
not going to get many athletes that are going to stick with a program for 4 years to get to a goal. Like
so along those lines, right? So I've got one of my athletes now, and to give you an idea, he's late 20s. Was a Division 1 water polo player. So this guy's got lungs like you cannot freaking imagine. Lungs and legs like, oh my God, he can tread water.
lactate threshold for days.
Yeah, Lactate, never heard of her. So and he was about a year he was about a year, maybe a year and a half into training on his own when I met him. He picked it up during COVID, right? Like a lot of people did. And I got him, and he had basically made like rank 2 with 20-kilo bells and in jerk and long cycle. It was not much of a snatcher. Um, and I've had him for about a year now. Now he is consistently a rank 1 or CMS in 24s in all 3 lifts. And he usually trains 28s in the gym. Like it's like if we're doing 3 sets, he'll do the first set with 28s, then he'll be like, all right, I'm out of gas. I'll go back to the 24s. And we're already planning for Worlds next year because I looked at him. I said, do you think you can get to 32s by next year? And he's looking at me, he goes, fuck it, let's try, right? And so I'm just like, all right, that's my boy. Let's see if we can do this. And he'll probably get there. I mean, he's running 160s on snatch with 24s right now. He's running, 110, 120 on jerks with double 24s right now. So it's like, but he can get into the 28s and he'll only lose about 15% when he goes to 28. So it's like, he's pretty close. It's like, if you're not losing 25% ish, if you're only losing 10, maybe 15% of your rep count when you go up a bell, it's like, no, you're
Yeah,
sitting right on it, man.
close. He's
You know,
close.
it's like, and he's good for a handful on 32s. He'll pick them up, and like I said, on double jerks, he'll probably get about 40, maybe 50 reps
What
in.
weight class is he in?
He's about an 85 kilo, 87 kilo. Depends on whether he's had a fat week or a light week as to whether he breaks 87 or he hits 95. Um, but I mean, he's really strong. He's got a lovely attitude. He's fun as hell to train. I like him a lot. He was in the gym this morning, and so we started talking. I was like, how crazy do you think it would be for maybe next summer? And he's just like, what do you mean? I was like, Milan is
How's
going.
your Italian?
I was like, "Yeah, I'm just saying Italy's beautiful in the summer. How do you feel?" And he's just like, let's do it. And so I told him, I said, all right, let's get you through this this fall's comp season, because he's registered for a couple, he's registered for mine and one more in the fall. And yeah, he's gonna be real close. I mean, it's like he may be like, rank three, rank two with the 32s, first go out, debut comp kind of thing in the spring. And it's like, definitely he's another 2 years, year and a half to 2 years from master of sport. But oh damn, dude. It's like, oh, you can just smell it. It's like he's so close.
Yeah.
And then I got some of my other lifters, who are like, running CMS with 16s, and it's like, she's a complete beast, but she ran out the table. She ran out the table, and it's like, all right, so you walk over and you drop the grape down at her feet and be like, it's time for 20s, and she'll look over at you and be like, but I like my 16s, I'm going to lose pace. I'm like, yeah, you will. I don't want to blow my weight class. Weight class doesn't mean shit to me. She's like, weight class is 2 reps, man. 2, 3 reps. It's not that much.
It's very rarely worth the squeeze. It's very rarely worth the squeeze to try and go down a weight class.
Yeah, and it's like, and also it's like with the GPP, it's like, oh, I don't want to lift because I want to pick up any weight on muscle. It's like, you know what? Fine, fine. You pick up 5 pounds. Who cares? Who
Worth it.
cares?
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
I've
You
rarely found it, especially with my female athletes. I've rarely found it where the extra 5 pounds wasn't more helpful than hurtful.
Oh, totally, 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 totally. But that's all GPP, man. None of that happens in your sports stuff. The sports stuff tends to cut weight, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's why like for many of my athletes, their off season focus is hypertrophy. Right. And it's
Yeah.
not, I mean, we will do some of it on the kettlebell, or I'll do all of it on the kettlebells if that's all they have available, or that's what they want to do. I'm certainly happy to run, a kettlebell only muscle gain type of phase. Shout out to Joe Daniels. Like I'm not stealing that, right? Like I'm more than
Yeah,
happy to
but Joe's
have
also
them
the
run.
first one to tell you a 24-kilo kettlebell is not going to do it for you if you're trying to put on muscle. You're going to run out of gas on that thing in no time flat. I mean, Joe will point blank tell you, it's like, yeah, I got 200-pound kettlebells over here.
Well, and he doesn't say that that the kettlebell is the best way to do hypertrophy. He's just trying to prove people wrong that you can't do hypertrophy with kettlebells, because you absolutely can.
You 100% you can.
You absolutely can. It's just,
You need big bells.
if I've got a choice between telling somebody, hey, you gotta load up 300 pounds on the squat rack and do some heavy deep squats, or you need to get two 75-pound kettlebells and hold both of those in the front rack position and do 10 sets of 5 reps on double fronts with your 40-kilo bells. Yeah, most people don't have two 40-kilo bells, and most people can't hold that position, right? So it just
Well,
becomes a
also, I mean, it's
practical
just
thing.
German volume training at that point.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and again, I actually like German volume training. I know it's silly for a lot of people to look at you and think you're nuts, but I think it's a good GPP, to be honest.
I mean, that's the thing that I love about GPP, right? Is there are so many. This is the place where you can play with so
Totally.
many different modalities, right? Like I have if you're familiar with the 1 by 20 program, right? It's basically one set of 20 reps of like 20 different exercises. That's one.
Over and over and
Well,
over.
it's just one set of 20, and it's a whole bunch of it's every muscle group, right? And it's super effective. It's a great GPP protocol. Shout out to Kessa. She actually specifically pointed me at that protocol and like requested that we try something with it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is super fun as I read it. And then I've got another another athlete that I'm working with where we're working up to one set of 100, right? Like, it's like, and it's one movement, one set of 100, but it's because like he didn't want to do a whole bunch of different exercises. He's like, no, I
Sure.
find it a lot more fun to like do my kettlebell sport and then just focus on one thing. Like, I'm going to do squats.
I,
I'm going to try
I
and
have an
build my
athlete that
strength
just finished
endurance,
that.
right?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, Sarah just finished doing that 100 squat protocol, and she just finished doing it. And I said, "Well, how did it, help for your sport work?" And she's like, "Well, it definitely got my legs stronger." I was like, "Anything else?" And she goes, "It got my legs stronger." I was like, "All right."
I can crack a walnut with my ass cheeks, but
Yeah, exactly. It's like I can actually make dents in the floor with my heels. I was like,
I also have a Gymshark. I have a Gymshark offer on the table, considering, you know,
I'm going for sponsored athletes. Stand on, fat trainers and ass pants is definitely the thing that we need to start working towards again.
we got to bring that, back. Well, we're entering Joe Rogan podcast territory now. It's been a full 90 minutes of hardcore nerding out on GPP. So I'm gonna say thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. As always, we could nerd out for days on on pretty
and
much
have
on pretty much any topic, and have,
and
especially
have.
when there's drinks involved. So, Mike, thank you very much for coming on. I always appreciate picking your brain. It's always fun to talk about these things. So thank you for dropping some knowledge and coming on, and make sure you sign up for the Tough Temple Kettlebell Open in Bethesda on September 8th if you can, or online. And you can go see this handsome young gentleman in the flesh and get some nice prizes and qualify for the USA team for 2025 in Milan, Italy.
We have Jay's cash from Living Fit.
All
You
of
can win Jay's money.
it. Come win Jay's money.
Come win Jay's money.
Thank you very much, Mike. Cheers, and
Thanks,
we'll
Jordan.
we'll see you on the next time, because we know it's going to happen again.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you, man. Talk soon.
Yeah, buddy.